The late afternoon sun poured through the half open blinds, painting golden stripes on the aged hardwood floor of Ellen Harper's living room. The air hung thick with the quiet of a Tuesday in late June, a day where time felt suspended, punctuated solely by the rhythmic ticking of the old clock perched on the mantel. Ellen, a woman in her mid-50s with silver streaked auburn hair and eyes that reflected a deep seated strength, settled into her beloved armchair. A gentle cup of chamomile tea, warm and soothing, nestled in her hands. The house, once alive with the joyous laughter of her two daughters, now grown and scattered across distant cities, had transformed into a cavern of memories since the day her beloved husband David departed 4 years ago. The silence lingered familiar, yet today it felt heavier, a gentle weight upon her heart that she couldn't quite dispel. She cast her eyes upon the garden beyond, where her roses hung their heads in the sweltering summer heat, pondering whether a gentle pruning might restore their vigor, or if she had simply succumbed to the tempting allure of a nap. The deep growl of an SUV from the neighboring driveway shattered her moment of reflection. In the heart of the neighborhood lived Susan and Mark Thompson, the kind of souls who embodied reliability, always prepared with a spare key in hand or a warm batch of homemade cookies to share. Ellen had picked up on the delightful news of their son Ethan's visit from Susan's animated conversation at the mailbox just the day prior. Ethan, a young man in his late 20s, found himself immersed in the vibrant tech scene of San Francisco, a bustling metropolis that felt like a distant realm compared to the tranquil suburban street he once called home in Virginia. Ellen recalled him as a tall, slender youth, ever courteous, yet somewhat aloof, his gaze seemingly lost in a distant realm of thought. Now she caught fleeting glimpses of him through the window, taller and broader, exuding a quiet confidence that had blossomed in his absence. His dark hair tumbled gently over his forehead, while his green eyes, vibrant as fresh spring leaves, revealed a profound depth that had eluded her in his youth. Ellen placed her tea gently on the side table, the ceramic making a soft clink, and resolved to join the neighborhood's annual summer potluck at the community park that evening. Uncertainty lingered in the air. Perhaps it was the stillness of the afternoon, or a subtle yearning for a bond that transcended the confines of a phone call with her daughters. With a touch of nostalgia, she crafted her beloved broccoli salad, a cherished recipe passed down from her mother, and set off to the park as the sun began its graceful descent. Streaked across the heavens in gentle hues of pink and orange, the park thrummed with the vibrant pulse of togetherness. In the vibrant playground, children zipped about, their laughter ringing out like chimes in the breeze, while adults gathered at picnic tables, weighed down by generous servings of ribs coleslaw and juicy watermelon. The aroma of charcoal and citronella filled the air, a wistful mix that pulled at the strings of Ellen's heart. She discovered a serene bench beneath a majestic oak distanced from the bustling crowd, and gently placed her plate upon her lap. The cool metal of the bench anchored her, and as a shadow draped over her, she glanced up to find Ethan standing there, a paper plate heaped with food in his hands, his face a blend of uncertainty and warmth. "Do you mind if I take this seat? It's a bit packed everywhere else," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Ellen's lips curled into a gentle smile, her hazel eyes warming at his presence. "Not at all, Ethan. There's plenty of space," she replied. He settled in, carefully balancing his plate, and she couldn't help but notice how his navy t-shirt hugged his shoulders, the faint stubble tracing his jawline. There was a heaviness in his stance, a slight slump that hinted at unspoken burdens she had yet to understand. In the beginning, they dined in a quietude that required no words, only the soft clinking of plastic forks and the faint laughter of children in the distance. Ellen's gaze flickered to his hands, those long fingers with their clean nails, hands that seemed crafted for precision, whether it was typing code or strumming a guitar. He noticed her looking a flush creeping up his neck as he tucked his hands beneath his thighs, a gesture so unguarded it made her heart twinge. Your mom's cornbread is the stuff of legends, Ellen said, breaking the silence, her tone light yet sincere. Ethan's laugh was soft, a sound that seemed to melt the tension in his shoulders. Yeah, she's got this secret ingredient she won't even tell me. I've been begging for years. His green eyes crinkled at the corners, and Ellen felt an unexpected warmth spread through her, disarming in its intensity. Some secrets add to the charm, she teased back, and he nodded, taking a bite of the cornbread. After a moment, he spoke again, his tone tentative. You're Ellen, right? Mom and Dad talk about you a lot. She nodded, a flicker of pride in her chest. That's me and your Ethan, the city boy, back for a breather. He chuckled, but there was a shadow in his eyes, a fleeting sadness that made her pause. Something like that needed a break from the grind. Mom's cooking doesn't hurt either. The conversation flowed effortlessly. After that, a dance of small talk that felt anything but small. They laughed about the neighborhood's quirks, the HOA's absurd ban on flamingo lawn, ornaments the way the street stray cat ruled like royalty. Ethan shared a story about his tabby in San Francisco who knocked over his coffee every morning, and Ellen recounted her daughter's recent attempt at sourdough that ended in a flour covered kitchen beneath the surface. Ellen sensed a current, a quiet recognition. Ethan didn't treat her like the widow next door or a relic of his parents' world. He listened, really listened, his eyes locked on hers, as if her words carried weight, and she saw him not as Susan's boy, but as a man with a thoughtful mind and a heart that seemed to carry its own quiet wounds. The sun sank lower the sky, a canvas of purples and golds, and the crowd began to thin, but neither moved, anchored by the ease of their shared space. As dusk settled, Ethan's voice grew softer, his gaze drifting to the empty playground. Sometimes I wonder what it's all for. He said, his words heavy with introspection. You write code build systems, but does it matter? It's just lines on a screen. Ellen felt a pang of recognition. She'd asked herself the same question in the long nights after David's death, when folding laundry or weeding. The garden felt like chasing meaning in a void. She leaned forward slightly, her voice steady but warm. I think meaning isn't always in the big picture. Ethan, it's in the small things, the way your code might help someone connect, learn, or just feel less alone. This conversation, right now, it's not saving the world, but it's making this moment matter. His eyes met hers, searching, and a slow smile broke across his face, softening the lines of fatigue. You really think? So he asked, his voice almost a whisper. I do, she said firmly, and for a moment the world narrowed to the space between them, charged with an unspoken understanding. Over the next few days, their paths crossed in small, serendipitous ways. Ellen would see Ethan walk on his parents' aging beagle Max, or tinkering with his dad's old Ford in the driveway, his brow furrowed in concentration. They'd wave, sometimes chat over the fence about the stubborn weeds in her garden or the sudden downpour that had soaked the neighborhood. Each encounter felt like a brushstroke, painting a picture of connection. Ellen hadn't expected one humid afternoon as she wrestled with a bag of potting soil in her front yard, sweat beating on her forehead. Ethan appeared, crossing the lawn with an easy stride. Need a hand, Ellen? He asked, already reaching for the bag. Her fingers ached from the plastic's bite, and she let out a relieved laugh. You're a lifesaver. This thing's heavier than my old couch. He hefted it effortlessly, carrying it to her flower bed, and she noticed the flex of his arms, the way his t shirt clung to his back. The observation startled her, a flush warm in her cheeks. She wasn't used to noticing men like that. Not anymore, thanks, Ethan, she said, brushing dirt from her hands, her voice steadier than she felt. He leaned against the oak tree, shading her yard, his expression open. No problem, you're giving these flowers some serious love. She sighed, a mix of pride and exasperation. They're needier than my girls were at 3. He laughed. The sound brightened the heavy air, and then hesitated, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. Actually, I've got this coding project. I'm stuck on a weird bug I can't crack. Talking it out sometimes helps. But my parents just nod and change the subject when I mention tech. Would you? I mean, if you're not busy, mind listening for a bit. His green eyes were earnest, almost vulnerable, and Ellen felt a surge of warmth touched by his trust. I'm no coder, Ethan, she warned, a smile tugging at her lips, but I'm a great listener. Grab a chair. He pulled up a lawn chair, his laptop glowing faintly under the tree's dappled shade, and began explaining his project. He used analogies she could grasp code as a recipe functions as kitchen tools, and his passion was infectious, his initial shyness melting away. Ellen didn't follow the technical details, but she felt the frustration in his voice, the spark of challenge in his eyes. She asked questions, simple ones, and he answered patiently, rephrasing when she looked lost. After 20 minutes, he paused, typed furiously, and leaned back with a triumphant grin. Wait, I think I got it. You asking about the user input made me see it. I had it in the wrong module. His excitement was contagious, and Ellen laughed, shaking her head. I just asked a dumb question. No, he said, his voice earnest, his eyes locking on hers. You listened? Ellen really listened. Nobody does that anymore. Her heart swelled, a mix of pride and something soft or unnamed. Their conversation shifted, deepening. Ethan asked about her life before David, her years as a library archivist, a career she'd loved but rarely spoke of now. She shared stories of preserving fragile manuscripts, the quiet thrill of uncovering history, and he listened with genuine curiosity, his questions thoughtful. Ellen felt a part of herself reawaken, a layer she'd buried under routine and grief. The afternoon faded, the heat softening, and their talk became a quiet intimacy, a sharing of selves under the oak's gentle shade. Ellen felt seen not as a widow or a neighbor, but as a woman with stories and strength, and Ethan, with his quiet depth, seemed to find solace in her presence, a reprieve from whatever weighed on him. A few evenings later, Susan invited Ellen to a small family barbecue before Ethan returned to San Francisco. Come keep us company, Ellen. Susan said, her eyes warm. Ethan's always talking code, and we need someone to balance it out. Ellen accepted, a flutter of anticipation in her chest. The barbecue was relaxed, just Susan. Mark, Ethan, and Ellen on the Thompsons' back deck, the air rich with the scent of grilled burgers and blooming jasmine. Ethan was lighter that night, laughing at his dad's corny jokes, his green eyes catching the torchlight as twilight deepened. Susan and Mark went inside to clean up, leaving Ellen and Ethan alone, their drinks sweating on the table. The silence was comfortable, but charged, the fireflies blinking in the yard like tiny stars. Ethan broke the quiet, his voice low, almost hesitant. That talk we had under your tree, it meant a lot, Ellen. She turned to him, her heart quickening at the vulnerability in his eyes. It did for me, too. She admitted, her voice soft. He swirled the ice in his glass, his expression distant. It's been a rough couple of years, work life. It all felt empty coming back here. I didn't expect much, but talking with you. You don't try to fix things, you just see me. His words hit her like a wave, stirring emotions she hadn't felt in years. Maybe I'm at a place where I value real connection over easy answers, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. Life shows you how thin those answers can be. His eyes met hers deep in searching, and the air thickened, a magnetic pull drawing them closer. Ellen's heart raced a rhythm she'd forgotten. Ethan leaned forward slightly, his hand resting on the armrest between them, and she felt the warmth of him, the faint scent of his cedar cologne. The moment wasn't flirtatious. In a shallow sense, it was profound, a recognition of shared loneliness, of being seen beyond labels, yet it was complicated. He was young, her neighbor's son, and she was a widow, her life rooted in this quiet town while his stretched across the country. Still, the connection was undeniable, a spark that felt both terrifying and alive. Ellen's thoughts drifted to the broader context of their moment, to the lessons she'd learned about connection and respect. She'd raised her daughters to understand consent, to value emotional honesty in relationships, and those principles applied here too. This wasn't about crossing lines, but about honoring the authenticity of their bond. She said, her voice gentle part of what makes moments like this matter is respect for each other, for where we're at in life. That's something I've always tried to teach. My girls' connection is powerful, but it's grounded in understanding boundaries. Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. I get that it's rare, finding someone who gets you, without needing to push things somewhere they don't belong. His words eased her, a shared acknowledgement of their restraint, their mutual care. He reached out his fingertips, brushing the back of her hand, a touch so light it was barely there. Yet it sent a jolt through her, electric and grounding. Her breath caught, but she didn't pull away. Her eyes locked on his. The touch lingered, a heartbeat of connection. Then he withdrew, his smile tinged with sadness. My flight Saturday, he said, his voice heavy with reality. Ellen nodded, her throat tight. I know the words were simple, but the weight of their moment, their unspoken bond, its beauty and its limits hung between them. It wasn't about chasing something impossible, it was about cherishing what was real. However brief, they sat in silence, the night air, cool, the jasmine sweet and heady. When Susan and Mark returned, the spell broke, but its echo lingered, a quiet promise in the air. Ethan left 2 days later. Their goodbye, a handshake in the Thompsons' driveway, their eyes holding a shared secret. Thanks, Ellen, he said, his voice warm. For everything, safe travels, she replied, her smile masking the ache in her chest as his car vanished down the street. Ellen felt not lost, but gratitude, a richness that softened the quiet of her house. The clock's ticking felt less oppressive, the sunlight brighter back inside. Ellen made tea and sat by the window, the stripes on the rug glowing softly. Her connection with Ethan hadn't rewritten her life, but it had reminded her that intimacy, emotional or otherwise, could bloom in unexpected corners. That vulnerability was a strength, and that being seen, even for a moment, was a gift. It echoed the lessons she'd shared with her daughters, that relationships, no matter their form, thrived on respect, honesty, and the courage to honor each other's journey.